Today we're joined by Shellie Flockhart, a courageous mother of four, small business owner, and vice chair of Dallas County Moms for Liberty. She's been on the front lines defending parental rights, standing for faith and freedom, and speaking out when others stay silent. From leading a prayer vigil at the Capitol to raising concerns about what our kids are learning in school, Shellie has shown what it means to be a joyful warrior. I'm honored to have her with us today to share her journey and her heart for protecting the American dream for our generation. So welcome, Shellie.
Thank you, Oliver.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today.
This is great.
Yeah, you've been on quite a journey.
Yeah, it has been definitely a fun, exciting, challenging journey.
So before we dive into, all the advocacy that you've been up to lately, tell us a little bit about your journey and what shaped your values growing up. And how did you go from running a salon to being a voice for parents across Iowa?
That answer is an interesting one. So I'll start with the values and growing up. I grew up in a very conservative household. Mom and Dad were both home. Dad was a retired school teacher and principal. And he, having both parents home all the time was pretty awesome and not the typical childhood, but we played outside a ton, had a lot of fun, believed in God, prayed. And then once I became an adult, I was now out on my own. Really wanted to join the Peace Corps. I think I was a little rebellious toward my dad. Okay. Wanted to join the Peace Corps, but they don't take cosmetologists in the Peace Corps, unfortunately. Oh, yeah. so that didn't happen. Became a cosmetologist. I'd gone to college, went to UNI, went to Iowa State, decided I wanted to make sure that I was able to have a family and be present in that. Life led a few different directions in my late 20s, ended up in drug and alcohol rehab. So that was kind of the founding point of, I now know at 28 years old, 30 years old, what life looks like without God.
Right.
Because I've rebelled against that for about 10 years and then decided to allow him back into my life. And so it makes me teary because it's not out of sadness, out of, so good. It's just so good, right?
Have you been able to counsel other people that have gone through that?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. That's fantastic.
Yeah. I still currently do that too.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yes. Been one of the most rewarding things ever. And I don't regret that part of my journey because it's brought a lot of depth to life and, brought me salvation.
The people that I've met with the most depth have come from some of the most suffering and the most hardest trials. And it seems like when people go through those kinds of challenges and get through them, it builds such depth of character and compassion, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I can see that with you because you're always the most generous, want to give yourself. I mean, you always show up when we ask for volunteers. I always see you on Facebook volunteering all the time, at church, handing out voter ballots, or not ballots, but getting people to register to vote, waking people up.
And that goes back, that's part that goes back to the salon. So the salon's been open almost 11 years now. And what I started to see in the last 5 or 6 years was I had clients that worked for large corporations who now could not share their opinion or voice on things at work. They could not talk about their own values. They couldn't talk about their faith. They couldn't talk about anything that might be considered an unpopular opinion with the corporations. And then social media, you were talking about me sharing some of those posts on pictures or events.
Right.
I was told at one point not to, that it was going to hurt my business and there was a person in my community that said, hey, I just saw that you liked so-and-so's post on Facebook. You should probably unlike that post.
Oh my gosh. Don't you love that?
And
so you went back and you put a giant like on it.
well, so
an exclamation point.
I really thought about that night. I was like, well, wait a minute. I can't even like somebody's post because I own a business. And then the very next day, that person posted a very political post on the opposite side.
Oh.
And that person owned a business.
Interesting.
So I was like, all right, so only one side's supposed to be silenced. So I started, I chewed on that for quite a while. Like, okay, what do you do in this? And as you know, from my 20s, I'm a little rebellious now and then, right? So I decided, what if I start testing the waters and start doing the opposite of what we're being told? And the more I started doing that, I realized that it encouraged other people to actually talk about these things.
Yes.
Or ask questions. Yes. If I was at an Oliver Bardwell event and I post a picture of being at that event, somebody's going to sit in my chair and say, tell me about Oliver.
Right.
So it's like, okay, well, we're not supposed to talk. We were told at one point we weren't supposed to talk about faith, and that's completely out the door. I talk about that all the time. But yeah, politics and faith go hand in hand. You can't have one really without the other.
I know, and I've been so disappointed in the church. Not our church, but churches in general, especially during early COVID. I just thought, holy cow, what's wrong with this picture? Why aren't churches standing up? And especially for the values that they preach. When we had all the issues with all the woke issues with gender identity and all those things, it's like churches have kind of, they think, oh, we need to disassociate ourselves from anything political or social. Yet how can you operate as a church that teaches certain tenets and values and then not actually live those out or talk about them?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I completely, it goes hand in hand.
That's one of the things I was so impressed about with Pastor Jesse is he doesn't hold back, and he is that's to me an example of speak the truth and it'll work out.
Right.
I mean, he lost some people at first, and now you guys have grown so big that you had to buy the church in Johnston and remodel it, and that opens soon, right?
Right.
And I
the
think
sign just went up yesterday, so.
And I think you said something similar about your business, right? That you have your client base grew because
it did.
Yeah,
it did. So the more I started working on things, and community started figuring things out that I was working on, and there were some people that didn't agree, and I lost a few clients, but in the long run, business grew 20% last year.
Wow.
When it came down to the financials. So how do you explain that? If everyone's telling you, don't do this, it's actually, it's silencing you.
Yes, it is. And you see companies like Royal Flooring, where they'll hold events for different political candidates, and Vivek Ramaswamy, we had a big event there for him, and there were a lot of other candidates that were there, and they have a booming business, a beautiful showroom, booming business. And I think at some point you just realize it's not worth the big concern to bite my tongue all the time and not speak the truth.
Right.
And silence is complicity.
Well, and even deeper on that, people pleasing.
Right.
Social media has taught us to people please.
Right.
It's all about how many likes will I get, know, and which is interesting. I could post something on Facebook right now and maybe get 3 likes, but I could have 40 people come in the salon and tell me how much they loved it.
Really? That's interesting. They were afraid to show that.
Yeah, exactly. So the visual of what happens on social media isn't always truth, right?
I thought it was just the algorithms.
Yeah, well, that can be it too.
Post a picture of your puppy, you'll get 200 likes. But if you post anything political, conservative, you get 2.
And I did practice that one.
Did you?
2 of Charles, my dog.
Right.
To 1 hardcore political post.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, I would get back in the graces of Facebook and then
There you go.
be able to post something
Yeah,
again.
I think we've all been banned at least once.
Yes.
If so, you went from starting your business to realizing that you needed to speak up to, and then what on your journey here?
So I would say a little bit pre-COVID, and then COVID for sure happened. And when the salon closed down, that was a big part of it where I started speaking out. When I locked the door because we were mandated to close.
Oh, I thought we didn't do shutdowns in Iowa.
Right. Somehow, yeah.
Somehow you still had to lock the door for how long?
Still had to lock the door. It was about 7 weeks.
Oh, wow.
6-7 weeks.
Holy cow.
And cosmetologists aren't union, right? So there's nobody going to the government having a voice for us. But when I locked the door to the salon, I just remember locking it. I mean, it's so vivid in my memory. And having that gut feeling, something's really wrong right now. Like you could feel it spiritually. And then going into how school was working for the kids or not working for the kids and how that was supposed to be handled. And people were panicking. And then we finally get back around. We go through, there was the whole George Floyd event that happens in June. We get back into school hybrid in the fall that year. And my daughter gets an assignment. Izzy's off at college now, but she gets an assignment that is on critical race theory and the COVID vaccine in English class.
Wow.
And it's, here are your resources that you're allowed to use. And you need to answer the questions accordingly. And then we will be discussing this in class. And so she came home with this assignment and she was just like, hey, I don't know what to do with this, but we can opt out. And I was like, what do you mean opt out? And she said, well, we can choose not to have the classroom discussion part. And I'm like, that's weird. Like, what is up with that? That's really strange. And so started digging in then a little bit. And that was the thing. She was in a classroom with her peers, some of her best friends, and she was afraid if I speak how I really feel, my friends are going to realize I'm not on the same side as they are on some of these issues. And so we had to talk about it. And she, this is, 4 or 5 years ago. And she chose to opt out of the conversation and she answered the questions. Well, and I contacted the school at that point. So that was kind of my start into getting involved with, contacting the school,
and
asking questions.
What did you say to the school when you found that out?
I contacted the teacher first, and then I contacted the principal, and I just said, hey, this is what's going on in this class, and I don't know if this is correct. Can you find out more for me? I had been told that the teacher took the American flag off the wall in the classroom and replaced it with another flag. And I was
it the trans cult flag or
no, not that. It wasn't that one yet, but
no,
it was
not yet.
Yeah, it was
that was a little further down the road. Every classroom had one of those.
And then I started hearing about the books in the school libraries, and I was just like, well, there's always been scandalous books around or whatever.
Yeah, you're thinking of Catcher in the Rye and
yes,
S.E. Hinton, some Rumblefish and her famous books.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Scandalous.
Yeah, exactly. And then somebody showed me what they were talking about. And I was like, are you kidding me?
I know.
Not in Iowa. Not in Iowa.
Not in Iowa.
And then it was like, okay, well, it's in Waukee. It's not in Dallas Center Grimes. It's not in my school district.
Fan Meter.
It's not, not in those places. And that's when we connected.
Right.
So if you remember, we did not podcast, but we did a Zoom meeting, and it was you and Terry Patrick and I and
Angie. And I have a terrible memory.
Oh my, we were at the salon.
You guys called me up and asked me if I'd talk to you about, we had similar problems. And we had gotten to the point where it turned into a petition, and
Yes.
30% of the populace signed it. And it was really just to hold up the law and to, I actually, before we started the interview earlier today, I pulled that up. It's been so long. It was 2022.
Okay.
It was October of 2022. And it was just, we were experiencing the same thing. And it wasn't me especially. It was some of the parents of younger kids in elementary school and junior high. My daughter was in early high school, I think, maybe, or late junior high. But they had reached out to me because they were seeing these things, books like Melissa, were in sixth grade being pushed, all these questions coming through, social emotional learning, all of this stuff had just kind of got it. I mean, just really flooded the school system, it seemed like. And it was mostly a curriculum thing, not as much a teacher thing, but, curriculum they had and those platforms that, we've all spoken out against, SEL especially, but.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a great call. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was that before Moms for Liberty?
It was right about the same time.
Right about the same
Yes.
time.
Yeah. And then we all ended up going down to the Capitol, and that's where it all began.
And we had a meeting with some of the folks from the education committee.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Bringing in the teachers, and they got to talk about what the real issues are. And that was a fabulous meeting.
That's one thing I have to say about our legislators is they do reach out and they want to know what parents are going through and what's going on. And they do, bring people like you and I and other parents and teachers in to talk about it and really get to the bottom of it.
Right.
Yeah. So that was
Good.
fantastic. Yeah. I actually interviewed Dr. James Lindsay, and I had brought him to the Capitol to talk about SEL and DEI.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. And your good friend Terry Patrick was one of my, she would feed me books and articles and podcasts, and I'd listen to them and I'd think, what the heck is going on here?
Yeah, Terry's one of the best educators of all time for us.
She could start a whole set of curriculum.
She seriously could.
Yeah.
She is absolutely fabulous. Yes.
But anyway, so we had the meeting and we talked about all those issues. And
yes, and it seemed like there's a lot of passionate educators out there who really want the best for kids, and then you've got this other segment who wants the best for kids, but they have a whole different idea of how to get there. And, that's when we saw separation between, should we have the ESAs where parents can take their kids to any school. And so that was passed by the legislature in Iowa, and parents now have the opportunity to choose for their child what school they go to. If they pay more for the private, they still have to pay a chunk, or if they go to public, but also which public school. So now we're in this time of choice, and it's not just choice of the parent. Now the educational systems have choices to make. It's now not just doing the same exact things that everything, the surrounding schools are doing. What are you going to do different that's going to attract students?
And I didn't understand the pushback on that, because to me, that creates equal access.
Right.
If you're in the inner city and you're concerned about the environment your kid's in and the quality of education, you have the right now to take tax dollars, $7,800 or whatever it was, and send it to a different school and take your kid to a different school.
Right.
And get the education that, and it could be a private or it could be a public school that you think would better fit your child.
Exactly.
So I didn't understand the pushback so much on that. And they called them vouchers. I knocked a lot,
they're still calling them vouchers.
Yeah, I know. I knocked thousands of doors last year in this area, and occasionally that would come up, and it was people that were on the other side of it were pretty vehement against it.
Yeah, it was going to ruin public education. It was going to
Right.
ruin all these different things. And so it was like, well, wait a minute. Why aren't you protecting all education? It's
Right.
just,
Right.
yeah. So that was interesting. And again, so much opportunity. And it's just like across the street from me is another salon. I live
Right.
in a town of 2,100 people. There's another salon across the street. When they came to town, that wasn't going to ruin
Right. You didn't
Studio S
hold
salon.
pitch
It
for
wasn't
the-
like, I wasn't in panic mode. Now,
Right.
do I
You
know?
weren't protesting.
Do I know that I need to? Oh gosh, I really need to probably up it a little bit, and make sure that everything's spot on. Of course it does.
Maybe get a little more creative.
There's a little
you know.
bit of competition, right there. And so competition's good. It's good for everyone.
Yeah. It is, definitely.
So that's when I dug in even further this last year was, now my son's in that same class
Sure.
last year, the exact same class, different teacher. And we're running into some of the same types of material, not the exact same thing, but okay, now we've got 2 units that are an agenda that are being brought forth to the students. And I had heard in the salon, people sit in my chair every day, several people. There have been people who have had one of their kids go through that class and then they pull the rest of their kids out and go somewhere else.
Wow. Go to a different school?
Right.
Oh, wow. So they're losing some students.
They're
over it.
losing some students. So that was my...
And tell me if I'm wrong, but weren't you part of helping to recruit teachers?
Yeah,
the school?
I'm on a team right now for that
Okay.
too.
Okay.
So my heart in the whole thing is to help my school district.
Yeah, to retain students and to get good teachers.
Yep.
Okay.
Retain students, get good teachers, also get the political agenda stuff out, right? When I was going to school, I had no idea. I mean, I can name one who I think I probably could have figured out how they voted when I was growing up, but they never said how they voted. They never made it very aware through what they were teaching, how they voted or anything like that. Now, if you were going to a private school that was one-sided, possibly, you
Right,
might see that a little
right.
bit more. But in the public school that's supposed to be pretty middle of the line, you might have a hint, but
Right.
not 2 units that are taking you down to, it basically was funneling students down to one core belief system, like you would expect if you're sending your student off to a liberal college.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't recall any of that either
No.
from being in high school or junior high. I mean, we had a teacher in elementary school that read a Bible verse at the beginning of each class.
There we go.
Didn't hurt us.
No, it does not hurt anything.
So what are you in the middle of right now?
So right now, since September 10th of last year, we have been going through a reconsideration of materials process for 2 units in English 2 that are divisive concepts, saturated in anti-America, CRT, DEI material. And the divisive concepts in the state of Iowa are supposed to have balance if you are bringing a divisive concept into the classroom. And there's no balance. I've asked for additional books to be added that are pro-America. Some of the books, I mean, there's a chunk of it that kind of goes into immigration or immigrants, coming to the United States and their experience and kind of how hard it is and how bad it is. And it's interesting. I've had a couple conversations where I've said, all of us, for the most part, came from somewhere else besides America, right? Like
Right.
through our family lines. There's a few people who family lines came from America. But most of us, through our lineage are from somewhere else. And people are like, what do you mean? I'm like, are we that far removed?
Right.
We're at 250 years and we're that far removed from how this country began.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
so yeah,
We're all immigrants.
I have history of on my mom's side of the family coming to Boone, Iowa, when it was first being made into a town.
Where did they
thing.
come from?
So mom's side of the family came from Germany.
Okay.
Dad's side of the family came from Scotland.
Okay.
And so, and my parents are older, so we're talking, 3-4 generations ago.
Right.
For me. That's it.
So not
it's
that
not
long
like
ago.
6-8 or anything like that.
Right.
So yeah, it's very, very interesting. But everybody had a hard time coming. This isn't new, where you come and you learn a different language and you learn how things work in this country. And so in those books, I was like, what is happening here?
So what were the books what was your concern about the curriculum? And was this 10th grade history?
No, this is 10th grade English.
10th grade English. Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So.
And we've got slides here too. So.
Oh, right. Oh,
I just remembered that. It's probably timed out.
Open that for you. There you go. How's your coffee?
It's great. Okay, thanks. Good. Okay, so we had. So here were the different things, and you're gonna put the slides.
Yeah,
up there.
I'll try to get the slides.
Okay.
On there later.
So American Born Chinese, which is a graphic novel written like 6th grade reading level. I Was Their American Dream, again graphic novel like 6th, 7th grade reading level. This is My America, which is a book that is a social justice book, and it's got a chapter even titled America with 3 Ks in the middle of it instead of a C.
The Ku Klux Klan America.
Correct.
That we all live in.
I recently looked up, is there any kind of a chapter of Ku Klux Klan in Iowa? And
right.
No, there's not. It's like, why are we teaching this here? But anyway, our article called Why the American Dream is Unrecognizable Today. They do the song MKTO's American Dream song, which is about, it's the parody of Jack and Diane, but it's about how the American dream is, materialistic and gone.
Okay.
Compared to the real American dream. And then Paradox of Dreams by Steinbeck. Gorman's The Hill We Climb, the poem. An excerpt from Becoming by Michelle Obama. The story of Juneteenth. And then they watched the film Just Mercy, which is also social justice. So all of these together are on the American dream. So I want to encourage parents as you are starting the school year, making sure that when you get the information, we have an app for our school, and it has, the teachers will send out what's going on in the classroom typically. And sometimes there's links, sometimes they're not. Click on the links, go and look and see what things are. But when I started getting all of this information from the teacher, I'm like, this all adds up to the American dream is not, if I were a student going through these resources right here, it would funnel my thought to the American dream is not for all people, and America is inherently racist. Mm-hmm. And it's heartbreaking.
Yeah. So there was no contrast, no success stories.
No.
That's crazy.
It is. And so,
I do want to share something with you.
Yeah.
Because I did listen to your other interview, which was amazing.
Thank you.
On your Moms for Liberty podcast. And I thought, is this, I wanted to find some data. So, this is from ChatGPT, and it actually cites the sources. But children of immigrant parents surpass the income of both their parents and comparable children of U.S.-born parents.
Wow.
Educational achievement, and part of it is expectations too. 91% of immigrant parents expect their children to earn college degrees, compared to 72% of native-born parents.
They're grateful.
57% expect graduate or professional degrees, versus 36%. Let's see, the like 92%, they talk about work ethic. Even Wikipedia, second generation immigrants had a median income of, this was back in 2009. So this is above, this is median middle class back then. 42,297, which was higher than the first generation, which was 32,000. And the college completion was higher. But when compared with people of the same economic status, the immigrants always succeeded more and always did better. So that's in direct contradiction to what is being taught in that class.
Well, and one of the things I recommended, there's so many amazing stories of, let's find an immigrant, and I don't care where they're from, what color of skin they have, but tell some stories of success stories, because there's so many of restaurants, businesses, creations, like all kinds of stuff.
And you meet people all the time who came to this country for the American dream and succeeded.
Right. Yeah. And that's, that was part of my heart, and it didn't hit me until a couple months ago. I was really thinking about, after some social media attacks, I was really thinking about, I've had opportunities to go to our nation's capital in this last year a few times. And
I've seen some photos.
Yeah, I got to do some cool stuff.
I was one of the people that liked the photo.
Thank you. That means you're true to yourself. Right. You're not people pleasing. It's good. But it brought me back to, man, if you would have asked the 28, 30-year-old Shelly that was broken down and had become, had gone through rehab for addiction and alcoholism, and life was a mess, a total mess. If I could build life back up,
right.
I would have said, well, I know it's a possibility because I live in America.
Sure.
If I lived in a different country, it possibly wouldn't be.
Right.
Right? That's
you wouldn't dream that someday you'd be a business owner and a mom and somebody that legislators listen to, that want to hear about your story and what's going on, and sometimes take advice from when it comes to legislation, that you'd be in D.C. at the Capitol and all those things. I mean, that's the great thing about America.
Right.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Exactly. And, in those dreams, I was recently talking to some teenagers that didn't really ever think about the fact that you can work 3 jobs.
What?
I'm like, yeah, at one point in time I worked 3 jobs.
Right.
If you want something, that's what we need to be teaching our kids is, well, you can get from point A to point B. There's a few different ways to get there, right? But you can get there.
Yeah.
Where is the encouragement coming?
Right.
And any kid that sits in this classroom, I even sat there thinking through, and there's one part of my life doing salon, one part of my life doing some of this, and then one part of my life is out helping a whole different world. And if this made me think about the student that's possibly sitting in that room, we're in a school district where there isn't a huge percentage of non-white kids.
Right.
We welcome absolutely everyone, and they should be treated equal. But if you are all of a sudden telling everyone in that classroom that America, that Iowa is inherently racist and that people look at them differently, what is any student in that classroom who is from, maybe they came 5 years ago, maybe their parents came here, a couple generations ago, but all of a sudden, how are they feeling in that classroom? And then we'll get to one of the books in there, goes into all kinds of slurs for things. It's like, okay, why are we teaching this? I totally understand teaching history. Absolutely teach history. I understand having some conversation around ways or how to get rid of racism. But I
Yeah.
think we were on the right road, but oversaturating it actually, now we have proof it's doing the opposite.
Yeah. There's one thing about learning from the past and past mistakes and things that have, that our society has done or things that have happened that have been atrocious or that
Right.
were wrong, so we don't let that happen again. But there's another thing to have laser beam focus on that and say, well, now everything's, these kids can't succeed because of things that happened back then.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
I still remember Eddie Andrews. Eddie at one of the events said, and I can't remember what it was, but he said, why isn't anybody talking about how when Iowa became a state, slavery was not allowed? It's never been allowed in Iowa, and it's like,
Right.
we need to take pride in that.
Right. Right. And it was like the first state or one of the first states.
Right. Right.
Yeah. No, I mean, we live in a great state.
We do.
Yeah. But if I went to this class, I would probably just give up.
Well, yeah, I would be walking around thinking, do people really look at me, differently? And no
Well,
matter what skin color, because, now people are bashing people for, any color of skin. And it's kind of like,
yeah.
the hairdresser in me is like, why didn't people choose hair color? It's
Right.
like, it's just so silly. It's melanin in your skin.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Martin Luther King Jr.'s whole thing was to be judged by the content of your character.
Amen.
And the whole
Yes,
idea of
yes.
our civil rights code is, immutable characteristics there. But it's like we should be colorblind in that we're human beings,
Right. Right.
and that's what we should be teaching is, hey, we're all human beings.
Exactly.
And we're all U.S. citizens, and we're
Exactly.
all, let's go Team America, and
Yep.
let's make the country great.
We, I keep getting way off topic. So
That's fine.
it's good.
We've got time.
One of the, I still remember, and this was when my son was probably first or second grade. And all of a sudden, the school assembly started being centered around differences and not similarities. And they were, everyone was supposed to start talking about their differences and everything being different. And I was like, well, okay, that's interesting. But if you really look into society when it comes to connection, or if you go into a room full of strangers, the fastest way to connect is to look for similarities.
Right.
What if I walk in here and I don't know you? What do I have in common with Oliver Bardwell? What do I
Right,
have in common?
right.
He likes coffee. Okay, we can talk about coffee. But that's
We like Black Rifle coffee.
yes, we do. So that's one of the ways, connection happens. But we started teaching the absolute opposite.
Yeah.
So yeah, back on topic. So
Back to the classroom.
we need to go back to
Yeah,
that.
let's do that.
But so we got into curriculum issues. So materials that challenge the rigor. So why are we using materials that are not at level, that aren't 10th grade level reading materials? So that
they're
was
reading comic books instead of actually learning. This is English 2, right?
right.
Okay, so you've got an English 2 class, and they're reading comic books. They're basically learning critical race theory, which is supposedly against the law in Iowa. And they're teaching divisive concepts. They're, teaching that America is basically racist, and that if you're not white, that you can't succeed, and if all those things.
That everything's against
Right.
you.
And
yeah.
so you say, hey, what's going on? And what's that process like? I mean, when you stand up as a mom and say, this isn't right, why are you teaching our kids this?
Yes. So, and the process on that for any parent is just going and asking questions. I always believe remain curious. Curiosity is the opposite of judgment. So going in there and snapping on someone and saying, you're doing this is not the way to go. But going in there, asking questions of the teacher. If you need to go further than the principal, then you go to superintendent, and then need be school board, or for us, there's a process for reconsideration of materials. And partway through that process, I even went to the state and asked, if there's a violation of law, do I still need to go through this reconsideration of materials process? This doesn't make sense.
Sure.
Why you want, yeah. And I was advised by the state Department of Ed to go through the process. I went to our school board. School board president says, well, we need you to go through the process. So I'm going through this process, and then they start, taking it into segments and not allowing all the materials that are being used, and changing it to core materials versus supplemental or educational materials. And so those are bills that we're looking into for this next year now.
Sure.
So I want to encourage parents that as you're finding these things or going through and asking questions and wondering about them, if you are feeling defeated, that point might be the answer for another point, so in the future. So making sure that you're having conversations with other people, asking for advice. There's a lot of resources out there where parents can get information, but making sure that parents are aware and educated. One of the things I found from Governor Reynolds' office with meeting with some of her staff was most of the schools in Iowa have the curriculum laid out on the school website. So it will actually say what they're doing, what the materials are. When it comes to supplemental materials, most educators would say, this happened in the world. And so I added this little article in because it just happened, or something to that effect.
Which makes sense.
Right. But when I was showing you, the slide earlier, 3/4 of those, only 3 of these, only 3 are the core materials. The rest of it's supplemental.
So it's mostly supplemental materials.
So
picked to create a narrative for these kids that America sucks.
So then that became the question. And so then it was like, well, it's not that. And so I was like, okay, well, then we can talk about the rigor of the material. And then I find out from one of my son's friends who's in a different, in with a different teacher. Well, they're going over the same supplemental materials. So why isn't that considered core?
Oh, wow. So different classrooms, different teachers using the same supplemental materials. Okay.
Correct. So this has just been like the stonewalling from school attorneys.
So what happens, where does the backlash come from? I mean, you're doing a process. I mean, there's been laws passed. There's obviously a violation. At least most people consider that.
Yeah.
And what do you got there? Tell me about that.
Oh, this one's the 2 graphic novels and the microaggression bingo card.
Microaggression bingo card.
So if you didn't know some of these slurs, you all of a sudden would. I mean, there were a lot of things in there where I was like...
So they played microaggression bingo?
They don't play it, but it's in the book. The girl actually... She goes through it's her story, and you take the book...
What's a microaggression?
Right, exactly. There's either aggression
or
or
there's a really tiny one.
Right. An itty bitty little,
Okay.
Might not be on purpose. No.
Oh, right.
But yeah, all kinds of different parts where it's like, it's putting these thoughts,
oh, sure.
in kids' heads of this is what, on their own, they're fine books. And I've said that all along. So now the attorneys are trying to fight that one. Well, she's actually never said she wanted books removed. No, I haven't.
Right.
And so now they're arguing that the material process is a book removal process.
Well, it's not a book removal process. It's
correct.
just a curriculum materials for
right.
The
so
course.
I used the process for something that wasn't expected by the opposition is what's happened.
Oh, I see.
So we also started figuring some of that out. Why why has it been a pushed narrative that I'm trying to ban these books
Right.
by some groups in the area, and then also,
So they aren't doing that, or they are doing that?
oh yeah, they have.
They're pushing a narrative that you're trying to ban these books.
Right.
Oh, okay. And where do the attacks come in?
Social media
Social media.
attacks, basically.
And where do you, okay, so you're managing a salon, your kids are older, you're trying to live your life, and you're a volunteer at the school. And that's one of the things I've found too, is that it's the moms that volunteer at the school that care about the teachers, that are friends with a lot of teachers, that are there all the time, that are in this battle.
Right.
Because they see, okay, this isn't right. This isn't what, and there are some teachers that are right alongside of them, although silent many times. Because when we were going through our thing, I had teachers reach out to me and, say, hey, these things aren't right. And,
Right.
you just don't
Right.
want to say who they are.
Yeah.
But where do you find the strength? Because, man, if I think of most normal parents, they just want to live their lives. And it's easier just to say, oh, they'll get through it, whatever.
Right.
But you're actually standing up and finding such a challenging process that it's day and day and day that you've had to work on this, weeks. I heard you say you spent a full weekend, hours and hours and hours just creating the report that the superintendent wanted for the curriculum.
Right.
Where do you find the strength to continue that and to do that and to see it through?
That's definitely God.
Yeah.
Definitely God. So that was oh gosh. And I still pray that prayer often, where I will, go to bed at night and I'm like, God, if you want me to stop now, if this has become a battle you don't want me in, or this is where my part ends and someone else's begins, just make that clear to me. And I would wake up the next morning and it would be so clear. This is what it happened this morning. Okay. Where it was like, I woke up and I'm like, okay, the podcast, I haven't even gotten out of bed yet.
Do I really want to be on all this podcast? He's going to ask me
what am I going to say? Are people going to hate me? And all this. But it was so clear. No, you need to go in and encourage parents to be part of their kids' education. Again, we keep hearing that, we keep hearing from the educators. Parents aren't involved anymore. They're too busy. They're too this. I've been a working mom for a really long time, and I've been called the helicopter mom, and I've been called the not involved parent.
Right.
So what changed in between there if I'm the same mom?
Exactly.
Something else changed. And so when it comes to, if I wanted to go, when I started challenging the material, I asked for a meeting with the teacher. And so 3 days later, I get an email back that is now including the principal, saying that those meetings don't happen unless the principal's there too. And so we'll have to coordinate all of our schedules.
So it's a lot harder to be involved now.
Yeah. And a lot of times it's not even getting, like, my son starts school Monday. I have not received any curriculum today.
Wow.
For his classes.
That's wild. Yeah, because I remember when my kids were younger, I could shoot a teacher an email, they'd email right back, and we'd have a phone call or even a Zoom call. They were so accessible.
Right.
Yeah.
It used to be a lot easier.
And I would do, all the parties at school and the field trips, and dads could come in and be the watchdog and just hang out all day,
right.
And there was a lot of interaction with parents and teachers and classroom
right.
settings and things like that.
Yeah,
which was a lot of fun. So that's not really happening now, is that
correct?
Right?
Yeah, it's very strange, And
so they're saying parents are involved, but they're also making it much harder for parents to be involved.
They're not involving the parents.
Okay,
they're saying they are.
Right.
But when it comes down to it, in order to, so I asked my son, hey, will you bring the books home so I can see them? We can't bring the books home. And I'm like, okay, so I get on Amazon and I order the books, you know, and that's how I got the books. But I'm like, I can't even get access to what they're doing in class. And that's most of the time. They now have the argument that,
now they can't have their phone in class.
well, and they don't have,
which is a good thing and a bad thing in some ways. I mean, some of the stuff that we were seeing in our school was a parent would, sorry about that.
Sorry.
It's my mom's birth year. A parent would, one of their kids would take a photo of what they were seeing on the screen or the slide or whatever, because it was kind of, parents weren't seeing that, and you'd see questions they were being asked or material they were seeing, and you'd think, what the heck is that about?
Yeah.
Why are they, asking somebody those questions, whatever they were. But
oh yeah. I was listening to something yesterday that was, there's a great book that came out that is Glow Kids.
Glow Kids?
Glow Kids.
Okay.
Excellent book. And it talks about screens and what that has done to kids. We all thought technology was going to bring education forward, right?
Sure.
And that was the way everything was going. But what we didn't realize is how important writing with your own hand is, and where the brain picks that up completely different. Reading actual books, all those things. So if the students have been on the iPads for however many years, have they read complete books?
I don't think so.
There's a lot of those pieces where it's been kind of a big experiment. So involving the parents might have been very confusing,
right?
in a lot of ways,
right.
And not saying there was some nefarious,
plot,
locally, I'll just say, against
parental involvement,
or just making sure that students are learning,
right?
But maybe we wouldn't have gone so long in that same direction.
Sure.
So my hope is that we will at least get the iPads out of K through 5, and then hopefully middle school too. Involving them in high school kind of makes sense.
Sure.
But the developmental brain years, they probably don't need to be on those.
No, I'm with you 100%.
Teach them how to read again.
Teach kids how to read again, for sure.
Yes. If I was a parent right now, I would be looking at, when it comes to what school should if I have a 3-year-old, where am I going to put him in school? And if it's not an option for a private school, then okay, if I live between, I'm like out in rural Iowa, if I'm in between 2 different school districts, which one has real
course material?
Well, and real reading scores.
Oh, real reading scores. Okay.
But not adjusted ones to make it look good. So I would make sure that I had those conversations with the school. We are, when it came to that material of the rigor and 2 graphic novels that are basically comic books, and it brings that level down. If we are now considering that 10th grade reading level, then, and I explained this in the other podcast, I questioned, okay, I know my son can read, but is he reading at true 10th grade reading level? And so got a book that would be truly considered 10th grade reading level. And yeah, he absolutely reads well. But what are we doing? If we just want the numbers to look good so we can recruit, is this our marketing strategy now?
Yeah. What do they call that? Where they're messing with the numbers to make it look better? Not that it matters.
I know. I can't remember either.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So where are you at in the process?
Yeah. So we are, we have one more, I guess, hearing left that will be in September. And I'm looking forward to the whole thing being done. And I have a lot of questions. So this will be with the Department of Ed. And, looking full circle, I'll be back with the people who told me to follow the process. all the people that told me, not just our school board or our administration or the Department of Ed, all of them told me to follow this process that part of them are now saying isn't the right process. So, and we still haven't talked about the material.
When did this start?
September 10th.
So this has been a year?
It's been a year.
Oh my gosh.
I've written so many papers. But the cool thing is, why are you doing this? Well, I've learned a lot about myself too. I'm a cosmetologist. I'm not behind a computer. I'm not a professional speaker, as some people love to point out. I'm just a mom. I'm a cosmetologist. I'm a hard worker. But if something, you see something is wrong and something needs to be brought out into the light, into truth, you just move forward. You don't have to have a certain degree to do so. You don't have to have, all kinds of money. I represented myself in one of the hearings.
Wow.
And did the cross-examining and everything.
They have attorneys involved in that?
Oh, yes, they do. Yeah. The school districts have attorneys, and they're just representing the school district. And at the same time, they're arguing my argument, so not arguing me as a person, but arguing the argument. And so it really made me think forward on a lot of different things.
And they wonder why more parents aren't involved in their kids' education. Oh my gosh.
Right.
As long as they completely agree with everything that's in the classroom.
Right.
Then they can be involved.
So that is one of
there's a disagreement.
One of the things we would love to see, if it keeps going that same direction, is some type of a parent coalition that has attorneys involved, where as a parent in the state of Iowa, you could pay in a yearly amount, and if you need representation, you have it.
Wow. What's your advice to lawmakers seeing this process? We've seen the laws passed, HF 802 and
right.
Now, and then we've seen the videos of the faculty that said, "Oh, we're still going to teach this. We're just going to call it something else."
Right.
The undercover videos.
Yep.
What is your advice to lawmakers as we come into the next session from your experience with this process? What needs to be done with these laws to make sure they actually are followed and they work?
There have to be consequences. So, or teeth in the bill. There
Right.
has to be something that is behind, financially. I would hate to see my school district lose some kind of funding. But if that's the only way that people will listen to the actual parents, we are the ones who are, it would be like somebody coming into the salon and saying, "I want my hair cut this way." And I would be like, "I'm cutting it this way."
Yeah.
It's like, what kind of a business does that?
Right.
If I'm saying, I want you to actually educate my student and not indoctrinate my student, I'm going to find somewhere that will do that.
Right.
So as far as the law and the lawmakers, we have to have something behind that. And I know that we're going to get fight back on that, as a state. People saying, "Why do you want to do this to the educators?" And they're there loving your children and all of that. They are. But this proves why it doesn't work without.
Right.
Because when it came down to it, the stonewalling and the drawing it out, I have friends that are on the other side of things in the past.
Sure.
Who have told me that the attorneys will tell them, no parent's going to go through this whole process. Just keep drawing it out. Just keep putting more assignments in the parent's lap. Just keep making it harder.
Wow.
So making sure that it's already supposed to be with House File 802 and Senate File 496. It's supposed to be a fast process. This has not been a fast process.
1 year later.
No. And like you
yeah.
said, there's already laws that are put in place for this. We had legislators who came to our school district and said, "Hey, we believe this is violating the law." And we even had them in on one of the hearings. And they said, yeah, no, this is violating the law. Okay, well, what makes you the guru on this law? And one of them, Steve Holt. I wrote it. That was a beautiful moment.
Steve has been involved. Yeah, get him on board.
Yeah, Steve's been involved. Dan Gilbach's been involved. Samantha Fett's been involved. And then behind the scenes, Terry Patrick, Angie Winnell, the moms.
Well, you have a lot of support.
Yes, and so finding support is huge for parents as well. But yeah, as far as the law moving forward, we need to define things. When it comes to school board members, we need to make sure that the Iowa School Board Association is training correctly. I do not know if all school board presidents or members understand their role to the fullest, that they are the final say. That became apparent in ours.
So they take a training, right?
Right.
From the Iowa School Board Association.
Which the Iowa School Board Association is the attorneys for the school district.
Oh, interesting.
They're protecting the school district, not the parents.
Right.
Right? So again, it's all kind of set up to protect the district and not necessarily the parents.
And how do we get more, and it's been a challenge. It's so hard to get good people to run for school board.
It is.
It's become such a challenge. I mean, smear tactics and all sorts of, it's become this crazy partisan issue.
Right.
And most of the time, I think people with conservative values just don't want to deal with it, or they don't want to step up, or they don't. It's very hard. I mean, to recruit people to run for school board.
Yeah. I think it would be a super exciting position. I am not running for school board.
Right.
There's a rumor out there right now that I am, and I'm not.
So for the record.
I'm not running for school board, so stop panicking. I do want the best for my school district. I am on the recruiting and retention team for them, and want to see them succeed because I want to see those kids succeed, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
For the people who say on the left and the right, people have said on social media to me, just ditch it and take your money elsewhere. That doesn't solve everything either. So let's just say every conservative out there ditches, who can financially. I would still have to come up with some cash, right? Who can or has that opportunity. There aren't even openings.
I know, and I was going to say that if you're lucky enough to get in somewhere within driving distance.
You still have all of these students in public education and all of these public education teachers who still want what is truly best for our students, what is truly best for the teachers.
Has it gotten easier for, I guess, the more conservative teachers to speak out a little bit?
A little bit.
Yeah, just a little.
It has. During this process, that was one of the most encouraging. That's where it'll get me every time. Having one of, different times, one of them come and sit in my chair in the salon and say, one of the last ones, I won't tell you what she said. It was pretty good though. It was funny. Made me laugh. But just that they're like, there's a lot more people behind you than you think, that we're fighting for them too.
Yeah.
They take pride in their job and in their students. And when they can't do their job, it's not fun for them either. Yes. Now
First time on the podcast.
Now I feel like Tina from Moms for Liberty because she tries to get everybody to cry. But yeah, there's a lot of great teachers out there. It's just this 3 to 5% of super loud, funded, agenda driven. And it always makes me think of, when Jesus is on the cross and the whole part of, they do not know. They don't know. There's a whole chunk of people out there that don't know. It's like having blind eyes, closed ears, their spirit's void.
Right.
They don't know. And you can't know what you don't know, right? So it takes a nation of prayer. I was on a call Tuesday night. There's a National Faith Advisory Board through the White House, Paula White does, and there was an education prayer meeting Tuesday night that was a call, and just absolutely fabulous. But they were even talking about how, like, the decline of outcome in education. Mm-hmm. If I were a school district today, even if we went through a couple hard years to get there, I would want to have the best, like, students actually coming out reading above grade level. Let's go back even, 20 years when people were actually reading books and not watching TV,
Sure.
like 40 years or 50 years. Well, I guess how many years has that been? 70 years?
Right.
But having them read at the top level, having them actually do math, count change back, know how to do their taxes,
right.
If they're going into trade school, being able to go into trade school and have some of those skills already attained. That's what I would do. We're facing a time right now where the administrators, a lot of them go through a lot to get in their positions. And then they get in their positions and they see all the problems we're facing right now. And they're like, I want to go out as good as I can. And it's really hard to do that right now. But if I make it look like it's good,
right,
that's really tempting too.
Yeah.
Instead of
let them take the test 3 times. Let them.
Yeah. Instead, it goes back to do the next right thing.
Yeah. That's a good place to end things on, I think.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much for coming, and
absolutely
thank you for everything you do. We will have to do a part 2.
Yeah.
We didn't get through everything. I know there's more. If you're listening and you want to support us, go to patreon.com/Oliver Bardwell. And again, when I see people like you stand up, mm-hmm. It's like there's a kindred spirit. There's my sister in faith, standing strong, right. And it inspires people. So, yeah, keep doing what you're doing, and
thank you.
And we'll always support you. So,
one more little plug.
Sure.
Oliver is going to add too. There's an opt-out form for students.
Oh, sure.
Oh goodness, there's a couple different. The Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, there's an opt-out form. So we're going to add that on there too. And then there's also SBAE, and it is School Boards for Academic Excellence, they have a ton of resources for school boards out there. They will come in and do a curriculum review for you.
Wow. Okay.
So if schools aren't using that, then they're scared because it's a great resource.
Right. Well, send me those links and I'll put them in the description.
Okay.
As well, because those are important. Well, incredibly important.
Thank you for everything that you're doing and that you've already done, and your heart to serve. So thank you, Oliver.
All right. Well, God bless you, and God bless all our listeners.